Good morning and good afternoon to all. Welcome to the Beas Control Version webinar. My name is Daniela Narvaez, and we will go through the functionality, and after the presentation, we'll proceed to answer any questions or doubts about the functionality. By raising your hand on the web tool, you will be allowed to question any doubt that you have. And after this presentation will be recorded and later upload to any channel for complete the documentation that we got. Okay, so our agenda will include what is version control and what are the special features that brings to our business, how can we set up our system to use this functionality, and also how can we see on the system the information from version control as reports. Now, what is version control? This is a new functionality that allows us to include different values and parameters from bills of materials and routings to an item, letting the user make the decision to choose when to produce the item with one specific bill of material and then sell it with another bill of material, for example. This will minimize the item creation when in reality it is the same item. The special features that we got is we have an active version that can affect all of the Beas special processes like MRP, work orders, sales orders, and purchase orders creations. We also have other versions that are not active, but that can be used to change documents after creation to give the breakdown of the raw material and routing, especially to a different version from the active. We have release control, which includes periods of validity of the versions. For example, if you have a promotion for only a month, you can actually only active that version for that specific period of time, and then after that use it another different version. In the system, we include new fields to administrate these versions, which are, and we're going to see it later, the I version and the administration fields. Also, one of the special features is that we have accessibility for detailed information between the versions and comparisons between the versions and the bill of material. Okay, so now, how are we going to set up in the system? There are two new concepts that we are going to use to assign that specific bill of material or routing to our finished good or assembly, and these are version and status management. In here, we have the item structure. I created several items to show you on the system how it's going to work. First, we go to one of the items, for example, this purchase item, to show you where exactly is the information, the new fields on the screen. The first one is the I version, where you can create, edit, or delete any versions that you assign to the item, and in there you can validate the period of the time that you want, if it is released or is it logged, that specific version, and also what status does it have. Here you have another field that we're going to explain it later, that is the administration. That inside it depends which scenario you want to use for the version control. Let's go to the I version field. If we click on the gray button, we enter to a new screen. This new screen will show all the versions that you have in the item. At this moment, we don't have any, so we are going to create one. So we click on New, and here is the main screen of the version. The version number or the version code can be alphanumeric. For default, the system will bring this, the 0001, but you can change it if you want to version 1 or any name that you want to give. The description will bring the description of the item, so you can change it too. Here is the new field 2 that we are talking on before. That is a special field that is called status. With a status, you can bring the option to filter the usage of the version within Beas process. It declares if the version will apply on the sales order creation, work order, and processes, or issue or receive. We're going to show you how it's done. By default, the system brings these 5 status. On this status, we're going to open for now one. By this status, you can filter exactly which documents does the version will affect directly. In this case, the release one will affect all of the processes: sales, purchases, and work orders. You can see that you can maintain in here all the information for the status, and in here, if the status is not going to be used, you can block it. But in this case, we're going to use it. You can create a new one in case one of these do not get to the business needs that you have, and maybe it's not what you need. So in our case, for example, we're going to choose the release one. There are new fields also that you have the release control. Like I said on the special features, this is a new field that can allow you to manage when is going to be used the version for this item. In this case, as I said, maybe you have a promotion that is going to be only for a week. And in this promotion, you will have a different bill of material, but you're going to produce the same item. For example, you're going to produce a refreshment and the label on the bottle is going to have something about the World Cup. So you're going to have a different label. So that means your bill of material will change. You can say, well, for the future week, we're going to release that version. That means that all of the work orders, sales orders, or purchase orders that you will have within the item will take into account this version. If you're going to use it, you can also check on the release version to say, well, this is one that we can use. If, for example, you're going to block it for probably the previous you were working before that has a different label, you can click on block, and then the system won't take it into account. In case you wanted to use it, for example, to change a sales order, you have to change it to release. Otherwise, the locked will say, and the message will bring on the downside of the screen that will tell you that version is blocked. So we're going to take it to release. Another important field that we have is documents. In here, if you have a new version, you can select any information that you want to include to this version. For example, if you have a branch information, or if you have a layout of the operation, or a layout or a label, if the thing is that you were changing the label of the bottle, you can have it in here. Here, for example, I got a PDF, and if you go to show, you will be seeing the document that you attach. Okay, so after we see this, now that we created the version, okay, so after this, now we're going to go, how do we use this item version control within the process? Okay, this is important because depending on the structure that you want, there are several business scenarios that can accomplish that need that you have. We got the standard scenario, which is you have the same item, but before you will have to create one item that is item A and one item that is item 8.1. If we use the previous example that I gave you, you will have the item A, which is the refreshment, and you have the label X, for example, that is raw material C, and you have that same item, only the label is changed, and you have it with raw material D. What the version control do now is that you can create for the same item, which is the refreshment, you can select, there are two versions. One version that would have the raw material C and the other version that will have the raw material D. You can change it if you want according to the needs and according to the promotion that you're going to use for the specific time. What are the virtues or the features that this scenario brings? Well, you will have a firm connection because the link is one-to-one. That means that the finished good will be linked directly to the bill of material or directly to the routing, okay? And probably you cannot be used that bill of material for another item in case, or you can use it, but you have to link it directly to the master data. There is another example that we can have another scenario, that is when you have item A, which is one specific item, and item B that have the same routing but different bill of material. What we can do in here is that you create a version for the finished good, for each finished good, and then independently you will have the bill of material that you can be used in each item, and the routing that is the same, you can use it in both items without saying that that is linked specifically to the finished good. This brings a more independent to any of the bill of material and routing independency to the finished good. That could bring us as features as we can change all the routings and bill of materials to different finished goods, and that is as a consequence that we have a multiple use for that bill of material. The third scenario, that is a more complex but it's most flexible, is that you have like the standard scenario, that you have the same item, only that the bill of material is changing and the routing probably is changing too, and you have the same item, and what you're going to do is that you will have two versions for the same item, and in the version you can assign exactly the bill of material. This bill of material is going to be created as different as you only assign the raw materials to the finished good. Why is that? Because when you create this scenario, the bill of material and routing labels on the master data will disappear. We will have a new transaction where you can create some bill of materials and can include all the kinds of raw material that you will have without giving any link to the finished good, only the bill of material, but the raw material won't have any version or the routing. And this will brings you more scenarios and more compatibility with other finished goods. Okay, now that theory is here, we're going to show you on the system how does this scenario work. Okay, for example, we got here the main information for the items. So what we're going to do is, for the standard one, we're going to use this one, this finished good. This finished good has these two raw material and this routing. What we do is we go on the system. Here, as I told you before, here is the administration field, which allow us to select which scenario does we want to select. In this case, is the default, the extended view, and the separate bill of material. The default is when you have one version or two versions, but you only want to look the active one. The extended view is when you have one or more versions, but you want to see on the item structure how many versions do you have and the whole levels of the item, to see the raw materials that are included on that item, or the routing that is included to that item. And the separate bill of material is the third scenario that I explained, is when you have different bill of materials and it's going to be according to the version. So these two labels that we have here will disappear. For now, we're going to do the default version. Okay, so as you saw before, we're going to create. Let's see that we're only going to leave this information here. We're going to take the release version, and we're not going to put any valid from or valid to. We just say that this one is released. We update, say OK. Now you will see that you have one version in the screen of the versions, and you click End. And after that, what you do is you select this one. Now, after you select it, you will see that in our item structure, the information will be shown. You will say, okay, look in here that we have that this item is currently on the version 0001, which includes all this information. Now let's see how to do the extended view. For the extended view, what we're going to do is, in here, we have no versions. We're going to create two, okay, version 1, and this we're going to do some, this will be locked, okay, and for example, and we create a new one that is going to be released, is a 0002. Perfect. After we create this, what we do is, we have to select a version in order to continue working, because now that we created, we have to select one of the versions that we create. Then we go to the bill of material, and we're going to link, as I said before, one by one. This is on the bill of material, one of the raw materials that we choose, and then we go to the extended tab, and we have from which version to which version we're going to work, or we have a range, which is better if you have probably 5, 10, 15, that you can choose which in which cases is it going to work. So for example, I'm going to choose in here 1 and 2 for the first item, okay, and now you see the range in here. And for the other one, I'm going to choose only version 2. This can be done also for the operations. Let's do something. We're going also to the extended view, which have the same fields, and we'll say, well, these go to version 1, update, okay, and this will go to version 2, for example. Update, okay, and after we did all this and we have 2 or more versions, we can select the extended view. Here it says that this information is firmly connected. As you can see, because I did all the links between the item and raw material. Okay, now that we have, you see that the version number 2 is the one that is active. But when you expand the item structure, you will see that you will have two versions, version 1 and version 2. The version 1 will have only one material and one routing. But the version 2 will have both materials and only one routing. In case we choose to see only the default, for example, you can look that there is no 1 or 2. This only brings all the information that the version 2 will have. Okay, now that we see these two, we have a third scenario, that is the complex one. In this scenario, there are two new master data that we have to do, which is the routing and the bill of material. Let's go to the bill of material that is more complex. In here, we will have, for our scenarios, we have all this bill of material created. For example, we have this bill of material which goes for item of this finished good and which have all this raw material 1 and raw material 3. If we go to the bill of material 2, we will have 1 and 2. So the one that is repeating is number 1. So after we create these two bill of material, now we have to go to the item structure and tell the system that we're going to use those. To do this, we're going to create both versions. Version number 1, okay, and version number 2, okay. After doing this, and let's see, we're going to use 1. We're going to say, okay, separate bill of material. If you see, now when I choose the separate bill of material, the label, bill of material, and routing disappear from the main screen, which means the following. Okay, when I go to one of the versions that I created, these two new fields will be shown. And what does it say is that on this specific version, I'm going to select one of my bill of materials that I create. We click update, and then for the second version, we have the other bill of material, which is number 2. Okay? And here we did okay. Let's go to end, and let's go to okay. So you can see that version 001 is the one is active, but we have two versions in here. Two versions that we have. One, the raw material 1 and 3, and the other version that we have only the 1 and 2. And it has one routing. The other one did not have a routing. So you can select or check all the information that that specific version will have in order to do all the item structure that you will need. There is one thing that is important, that when you have the bill of material, and if you create for the same item several bill of material, there is one way to make it faster, in case you're going to use a base bill of material and then delete or create or edit one of the raw materials that you have. How can we do that? For example, we right click in here and we say duplicate to. In this case, I'm going to use as a base, I'm going to use this bill of material 1. And then what I can say is I'm going to create a bill of material 4. Okay? The description, you can change it here. Okay? And we insert, which means that now we have this new bill of material with the same items. With the same items as the bill of material 1. What we can do is we can insert a new purchase item. For example, let's see, just to make sure that we have all the information. For example, we can bring this item too, okay? And we can edit this quantity. Instead of 1, we're going to use 2. So you can create a new complete version, bill of material based on a previous one. And then we go update, and the information will be right there. Okay, so now this is how all the usage and all the new fields are for. Now we will have how can we see all the information that we just created, or how can we see comparisons between bill of materials, or how can we see the whole structure that an item or a finished good has, between how many versions do you have or only the active one. This can be done on the system by, if you want to see a comparison between bill of material, what you can do is go to the bill of material. For example, let's go to and let's see. We're going to see what's the difference between the one that we had and the one that we create based on that one. So what we do is just right click on the one that we want to have as a base, and then go to bill of material list of differences, and you see this is the main item that we are going to make the differentiations between both bill of materials. And the other one will be, well, let's write it in here, the BC4, BOM4, okay? In here, you will have that we're going to compare this bill of material with this. We're going to compare which materials are we having in difference, for example. Let's click on Start, and you will see that on position 10, we changed the quantity from 1 to 2, which is correct, and then we have a new position that is position 30 that we have with this new item, okay, that the first bill of material do not have. That is what it says, not available, okay? This is simple when you want to just compare different bill of material. But how about when we want to see what does the structure have? Let's say in here, and we want to see that in here we have 2 versions, okay? For example, just right click on the item that we want to see, and we say structure report. When we go to a structure report, you will have the item. You can select, if you want to see only one version, you can select one. If not, it will bring all of them. For example, we're going to see just one for now. Okay, and you can say whether or not you will want to see the routing too. So in this case, we're going to see it. Then you go show. Well, this one did not have a routing, but you can, as you can see, you have the highest level, that is the finished good, and then you have the bill of material. This will say, this is a simple structure, but here you say if you have sub-assemblies or more, you will have defined all the levels that you got. Let's do, for example, let's take all of the versions. When we click to show, you will see both versions. Version 1, that we have only 2 bill of materials, like you see before, and the version 2, that we have 2 different bill of material and then a routing. Okay? In this case, you will have it separately. So you can see all the information that you have in here. Okay, these are the reports that we have to take a look on what is on the system. Okay? So this is all the information that you will need to create and to use the version control functionality that we have on Beas. If you have any questions, now is the time to raise your hand, and we are going to answer all the information or doubts that you have.